in the consumer experience. Actually, that's the wrong one. That's the earlier one. Our next one is all about, let me just get to the right one for you. Yes, Foodtech economics. The cloud kitchen opportunity is what we're going to be talking about now for the next 40 minutes or so. Please, could I invite onto the stage our panelists, Andy Holman, the CEO of Ethos, Ajay Jain, country CEO of Rebel Foods, Badir Ataya, the CEO and founder and CGO of Katopi, and Ian Ohan, the founder and chief executive of Crush Brands. Gentlemen, the stage is yours.
Where is everybody? Afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. We're about to put a bit of fun into tech because there was a time when tech was really boring, wasn't it? It was a turn-off. But I think what's happened and what we've seen from GrubTech and what we've seen from our lovely sponsor here, DeliverX, that actually, if you don't make tech your third arm, if you don't put it in the center of your business, you really aren't going to go places. But what we've got here, we've got 4 people who really have made tech come alive. And what they've done, they've come to the market, they've sprinkled the pixie dust on the food scene, and they've brought the tech Disney to market. So we're going to get into the minds of these guys here now and open it up and hopefully give you some new news and new information and maybe some gossip, who knows. But there we go. Oh, lovely. Andy, we're going to kick off with you. So we've got to get comfy after lunch, haven't we? So Andy, Foodtech has revolutionized food service, consumer behavior, and innovation. Investment opportunity at a scale we could never have imagined a couple of years ago. And you're someone who's gone from brick and mortar to the virtual world. Talk to us about how Ethos has really revolutionized what you do, and I think led the way for the brick and mortar into virtual.
Well, yeah, we, I guess like a lot of people, looked at the pandemic as an opportunity to double down on some things which we knew we were good at, which was delivery, and sort of take a slightly different approach to using the assets that we had, creating virtual brands to generate some additional revenue. That seemed like a sensible thing to do in the period that we could only trade through delivery. And pretty quickly we realized that there was an opportunity to take that virtual brand creation, put it into our own estate, and then find alternative places to go and play. So we've been on a bit of a journey in the last couple of years figuring out where we can go. Ideally, we go to places that have already built kitchens that are, we don't have to spend money to build ourselves, and that have a need, a demand. So we've been doing a lot of work with hotel chains, both opportunistically and in some cases strategically. And that journey has not just allowed us to kind of use their kitchen as a cloud kitchen to serve a trade zone, but also to try to figure out how we can solve and serve their guests, either in their rooms in terms of in-room dining, or even in some cases in their restaurant. So at the core of what we do, which is making great food and trying to look after customers, remains very much the center of our thinking. But being able to connect, as you can imagine, all those different elements of different environments where guests are either not used to logging onto apps, which would be the case in some hotels, or not used to the delivery process coming from third-party providers. We're kind of going through that learning curve of what works best from our back of house, what works best with our point of sale, what works best with our aggregator partners, so that we actually, at the end of the work that we're doing, still have some semblance of understanding what the data is telling us, what the customer satisfaction is like, and what we can obviously take and apply as we continue to innovate. So it's been pretty much a baptism of fire over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I'd really like to hear from the panel today about, I think the last 2 years has been a bit of a turn-off for all of us, and I've got to tell you, the optimism that is in this room today is extraordinary. I don't think any of us have seen it like this for a very long time. Just because we got 3 other guys to talk to, but What about the next 2 years for you? Try and give us a little bit of a snapshot and get your crystal ball out.
Well, look, in simple terms, we have some great brands that we represent, and we know that brick and mortar development will continue to be a central part of what we do. We may not be as fast on some of the developments as we previously would have been, but we definitely continue to believe that brick and mortar provides, a higher rate of return for customer acquisition than anything else. We'll continue to work with virtual brands where they make sense, and we'll continue to figure out the optimum real estate play, whether it is purely ourselves, whether it's working with other partners, and there's, some of our colleagues from Reef and Icon and Kitopi will be a testament. There's an opportunity there. So I think we're clearly continuing to invest. Slightly different view on the mix, brick and mortar to cloud or brick and mortar to virtual. We'll continue to kind of figure that out.
Yeah, it really is a labyrinth, isn't it? And Barry, we see Kitopi's name and the new kid on the block now, which is Reef, and I'm pretty sure that chair next year will have some big kahuna from Reef there saying, showing us how they're hoovering up the world. But for you now, we are seeing this enormous investment into this category, aren't we? But as we enter what I'm calling this post-COVID economy now, and I think we are through it now, let's hope, certainly in where we are in the UAE. Other parts of the world are still struggling a lot. But has consumer behavior reverted now, or have you changed the way people eat out now?
So I think consumer behavior has been changing for a while now. We were lucky enough to be born in Dubai as a business, which I think has always been at the forefront of delivery adoption, of tech adoption, and we realized how advanced the UAE was in adoption of delivery apps and people's habitual, ordering into the office or ordering home. We moved markets quite quick. So where traditionally the biggest cuisines to be ordered were Chinese takeout and pizza, I think over time we have become as consumers more accustomed to being adventurous on delivery apps, trying our favorite restaurants that we eat at, dine in, at home. And that shift was happening in the UAE prior to the pandemic. The pandemic hit, we were all forced to stay at home, and I think even those who were not, delivery native, once a day turned into that because of having to stay at home. I think beyond that, think of your first shopping experience online when you bought clothes, where you thought, I'd have to try on clothes before I made a purchase. So once you try it once and you have a good experience, you're almost a customer for life. And I think that happened, but as lockdowns eased, as markets opened up, we noticed that each market and different types of consumers have their preferences. And while we started as delivery only, we don't think that is the only way to reach consumers looking to eat, right? In markets like the UK, they still want to walk out of their house and get a lunch for under £6 rather than order something in for 10 to 15 pounds. In the US, drive-through is still one of the biggest contributors to kind of fast food or casual dining restaurants, and a lot of these picked up even more after the pandemic. So I think to make a long answer short, consumer behaviors have changed, and I think they will continue to evolve as we ease out of lockdown. And I think restaurants' behaviors have changed and how we target consumers as well.
Yeah, and I think Kitopi, you have been in the forefront of this, and I've followed your journey and been in your office and seen it, and it's such an exciting place to be, where ideas and behaviors and trends are really being born, aren't they? But we've looked at Andy's crystal ball. What for your crystal ball for the next 2 years? I mean, you have a walk-in full of cash right now, don't you? I mean, honestly, you're the envy of everyone in the industry. What are you going to do with it, and what about the next 2 years for you?
So look, we started delivery only, and we were ghost kitchens, and we would help people expand through delivery. That's excellent, and we were able to capture massive amounts of growth over the last 3.5 years since our launch. Today, we are focusing on, our North Star was growth, and the right content and building an infrastructure. Today we have an infrastructure of hundreds of kitchens, over 200 brands, and we think we can reach consumers in a few more ways with the tech and the infrastructure and the content we've built. So we are investing heavily in how to reach the customers. Today we reach them through aggregators and we reach them through the apps of the brand. So you can go onto the Right Bite app and order directly from there. But we are investing in things like food halls. We are investing in drive-through. We are investing in thinking about how a food court would work, how drive-to rather than a drive-through would work. So you're going to see a big investment in omni-channel, some extremely cool ways that we are going to interact with consumers. So that's one, how we reach consumers, and two, the amount of customizability you get as a consumer. So I think you should be able to order the food that you want wherever you are and have it within 30 minutes. So if you're allergic to something, have that ability to customize it and have full traceability as well.
I'm hearing something here, and I'm a bit worried. How close are you getting to operating a brick and mortar restaurant?
No, so today we already operate brick and mortar restaurants.
Properly, full on. You talk about drive-to, you talk about omni, and when I hear omni, I'm thinking everything.
Yeah.
Waitresses, waiters, bartenders, chefs, cooks, cars, motorbikes, everything.
So today we are operating full brick and mortar restaurants already. I believe, like with all things, when Kitopi first started, the consumer never knew Kitopi. I think people didn't want to know that a cloud brand existed or a cloud kitchen existed. Today people are more open to it, and I think it's almost a stamp of quality, consistency. And I think today, while we are already operating brick and mortar, and while we're already operating certain, grab and go concepts, I don't think we are loud about it because, like with everything, it's a learning process, it's a growing process, and we need to tweak our tech, our systems, and our processes around it. But today we're operating brick and mortars, and you will see that continue to evolve.
Will you acquire brick and mortar, do you think?
Excuse me?
Will you acquire brick and mortar to really do the full circle, where there's a great brick and mortar restaurant brand out there where you could possibly learn from? Do you think you would acquire that?
Kitopi is what it is today because of all the brand partners we've worked with. Every brand partner that we've onboarded over the past 200 brands we've worked with has helped us improve on something. And we are learning tremendously from the brick and mortar partners we are working with today, and I think we'll continue to do so.
We've got under the skin of Badr now, so we'll give him a bit of break. We're going to come back to you. AJ, going to get under your skin now. Talk to us about has the cloud, the dark, the virtual world been sufficiently strong enough to influence consumer behavior, do you think, to enjoy the food in their own living room rather than venture out? I mean, here in Dubai, it's off the scale at the moment. You can't get a table in the great restaurants that are out there. But has it really changed from your perspective?
Yeah, the consumer behavior has definitely changed. As Badr mentioned, even prior to the pandemic, we were seeing significant adoption of food delivery. To give you specific examples, for example, when we look at our weekend volume versus weekdays, weekends are like about 30% higher, which is where, sort of one of the primary consumer missions is, on the weekends, consumers tend to go out. So which is where food delivery is also seeing massive adoptions. One of the other consumer missions is, when you venture out is, on a particular occasion, on Eid, long weekends, New Year, Christmas. So even in those occasions, we see massive uptick in our volumes. So which means that today consumers have got used to the idea of enjoying food in the comfort of their living room. We were seeing this even prior to the pandemic, as I said, Badr also mentioned, and the pandemic has just accelerated that impact. And even today in the UAE, when we see that sort of the pandemic is now becoming an endemic, then also the volume has grown only. It has not plateaued or it has not degrown. We are seeing consistently month on month, we're looking at growth for our kitchens. So this consumer behavior is here to stay. Now, with the work from home, with the hybrid work from home strategy, consumers have now got used to the idea of, sort of why should they cook at home if ordering food is so convenient. So we are seeing a permanent shift in consumer behavior.
And
this is not just, sort of for UAE, we are operating in 10 countries, and this is the trend across the 10 countries that we are operating in.
what is the latest emerging of your 10 countries for you? Are there any big surprises in there?
Not really. India is where we started about 10 years back. The last 9 countries have been, we've started only in the last 2 years. All these countries, Southeast Asia, Indonesia is performing really well. We've started in UAE about 2.5 years back. The market is performing really well. Now we are looking forward to expansion to expand in the Saudi, which is another big market in the Middle East.
So if we look in your crystal ball back in your office, is Saudi there screaming out to you, or what's your 2-year kind of gaze?
Yes, the idea is to, from a food delivery perspective, the idea is to have, to cover as many consumer missions as possible, sort of burger, Chinese, coffee, pizza was always there in the food delivery. We are now looking to cover Asian, sushi, health. So all the consumer missions in, sort of as many neighborhoods as possible. So expansion is definitely, yes, something that we're looking at.
Amazing. Ian, we're no strangers to these stages here, and whenever you bounce onto a stage, you've got something to talk to us about, something new. You're revealing something. You're opening the curtains to another new venture, and I think the last 18 months for you has been extraordinary, from pizza to now so many things. But I know something that's really fascinated you, and that's data, and I think there's this incredible accumulation of customer data now, isn't there? And it's not just about behavior. It's not just about names and addresses anymore by any stretch, as it once was. But we also can't ignore the impact of EI, and there's so much more beyond that. And we all have this clever tech now. We've all got this data, but and there's so much can be achieved. What are you doing in Crush Brands with data, and is there capability out there to really max it out?
Yeah, so from our perspective, data is super important, not to monetize data, because I believe that privacy and security are going to become one of the biggest online predicators for people shopping on your platform. So if you don't take care of people's data, if you don't give them control of their own data, if you're not transparent about it, I think people will just start to switch off. And today they don't have much choice, but they will in the future. So I think, first of all, privacy and security is absolutely critical. So customers give us their data so that we can give them food, not so that we can use it for other purposes. The purposes that we can use it for, and that we do use for, is we can track today through our own platforms every single movement somebody makes. And it sounds a bit creepy, but we're doing it to understand the consumer's behavior so we can serve them better. And I think that's the purpose of customer data, is to serve the customer better. It's not to serve ourselves. It's not to sell or monetize. And we think that's the future. But the way we capture data now with our own proprietary platform is unbelievable, the amount of information we have. And so now we're implementing very sophisticated tools, including AI and things, so that we can better understand it in real time, because the volume of data is tremendous, but we have to use it very responsibly.
It's interesting, isn't it? Over the last few years, we've heard this customer bitching about data. Who owns it? Your customer being the restaurant operators themselves, and the access and the availability to their data. What's your relationship with your customers and data?
So for us, it's the exact, as I discussed, it's something that, it's their data. As far as we're concerned, it's their data. I guess this is also predicated on the fact that us as an industry, we actually have our customers' data. And what I find interesting when you use third-party delivery, they capture the data, but then they give it to every other restaurant on their platform, or different versions of it. I mean, you need their address. So if you think about data privacy, that's not really a lot of data privacy there, right? So the big predicator is that most of our industry, we don't have data, right? So I think Badr made reference to, in-room dining, why don't we have data? And technology should be we should be using it to capture that data to serve the customer in a seamless way. Great technology is not noticed, and technology needs to be ubiquitous. We need that data to serve you, whether you're dining in a restaurant, whether you're ordering at a park, whether you're doing drive-through, curbside. We need that data to serve you better in a ubiquitous way, and the technology platform allows us to do that. But that data, for me and for our company, is the customer's data, and they're totally in control of it.
It's interesting. I was talking with somebody up at Expo the other night and about how do we measure the soft side of marketing, and I think in some respects it is hard, but it's very, very hard to measure the value and success of data. And have you cracked that yet? The measuring its success or
no, no. It's a journey, you know. And I think not just in our end. I mean, I'd also like to say I think COVID was the best thing that happened to our industry.
Sure, I agree.
And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but I think we've probably, as an industry, we talk about the impact on the consumer, but as an industry, we've probably innovated more in the last 2 years than we have in the last 30 years. And I think so. We should all give ourselves a round of applause for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think in most industries, data is not being used. You know, we have this incredible troves of data, and it's not being used. But the reality is, you know, there's only certain things you can use it for. And if you serve your customer better, it's going to drive more custom. That's our view. But have we cracked the one-to-one linear relationship? If we do this, then people do that. We have a lot of insights, but I wouldn't say we've got it all figured out yet.
Yeah, and I think for that food operator, aggregator, whatever they are, who cracks how e-commerce in the retail sector has really, really nailed it. This hyper one-on-one marketing when it comes to food, that person who nails it is going to be the slam dunk winner. It's going to be so valuable.
And I agree, and I think that's, in terms of what's going to happen going forward is we're going to see a maturity in the market, and we're going to see this, we're spoiled for choice now, a choice that we never had before, but the quality is going to become exceedingly important, not just the quality of your tech, the quality of your service, so I think customers right now have this incredible, wide choice, but real content, and real brands are going to become the key, on the back of these platforms, and so I think quality will become very, very important going forward.
I absolutely agree with you, and it wasn't all that long ago where, again, there was this constant anguish about the cost of doing business with aggregators, this 35% blah, and that, I don't hear that so much now. I'm hearing quality, the kitchen's got to be clean, speed of service, get a variety of great food to the customer as fast as possible and as delicious as possible. Are you seeing that better with Kitopi? Is that a view you would share?
Yeah, listen, definitely. I think to touch on something you said, I think it was the best thing for, our sector, but I think customers suffered at some point because there was a time when it was locked down and every restaurant tried to reinvent itself by adding 5 to 10 more virtual brands in their back end, right? So it was your neighborhood shawarma store, also doing pitas and pizza and other sandwiches, and I think it almost corrupted the delivery experience for a lot of consumers, and I think that's why a lot of us here today that have survived that focused a lot on the quality, and we became very public about our kitchen. So no one had seen a Kitopi kitchen until the pandemic, and then we brought in film crews. We started having people tour the kitchens just so they know that this is an authentic product, if you can call it that. It's of the highest quality standards. It's hygienic. It's clean, and we are as transparent as possible now.
Yeah, and I think you're right that everybody had a go at delivering the food from Le Petit Maison and down. Everybody had a good go, and there was some incredible food came to our door over that time, and now it's, I think, almost it's kind of leveled out. And I think Andy, I think you're the only one really who's not transformed, but I guess you have transformed, haven't you, from brick and mortar to doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I think what we've done is we've added. We've not stopped doing anything that we did before the pandemic. in terms of serving the brands that we're responsible for. We've added some using as I say, the facilities that we have. We've innovated by initially just saying what products and ingredients do we have and what cooking platforms do we have that we could easily, add a new category to. So the kind of the journey is, as I said, an ongoing one. I just want to come back a little bit on the data side of things. I think that obviously this journey over the last few years has accelerated a lot of customer service challenges. People couldn't come out, so we've found better ways to get to deliver to them. I think from a data perspective, there are a couple of other things. The consumer, of course, is a very important part of this ecosystem, but they're not the only one. There are so much in terms of as we've learned, as data becomes available to us, that we have to find ways to use better. So the sale is if you like, the lagging indicator. The leading indicator is about how do you get better operationally? How do you make, from your suppliers giving you the food, all of the innovation and tech that we collect, that can be predictive, that should be very, very important to everybody in the system. Employees. I mean, we have so much data on customers. We also have a huge amount of data on employees. We're all facing in the industry challenges to retain great people, keep them in, kind of enthusiastic, keep them committed to our brands and our operations, and they need to see a path and a future. And there's a huge amount of data that we can leverage to that event. Of course, then you've got all the other sort of things, landlords, and I mean, there's a massive ecosystem where data, I think, starts to be important to help us figure stuff out faster, figure out better solutions that are win-win for everybody in the business. It's not just about the customer, all right? That's ultimately the beneficiary of all of that clever thinking, is my thought. So we're not just, I guess my point is, we're not just focused solely on that. There's a whole other variety of considerations as we look at this endless sea of information that we need to cut, dice, and organize.
Do you know, you raised a very interesting point, and we could have a whole other show on this perfect storm of labor supply. We see it in brick and mortar. How is labor affecting your sector? Is it as challenging?
Yes.
More so, less so?
Well, I mean, for right now, I not only have interest, obviously, in the Middle East, but in the UK as well. So I can kind of see, and to some degree...
Where it's much more challenging.
It's everywhere. I think, and there are two. There's a supply-demand challenge, which, of course, is evident. A lot of people haven't wanted to come back into the industry, so there's that part of it. The Middle East at the moment, Dubai specifically, is going through its own challenges with, again, supply-demand. There's a big event which is sort of bringing pressure to bear. There's opportunity for employees. It's an employee market at the moment. And you know what? Good. Right? There will be opportunities for people in this short time. And those people who can't keep their employees have got to ask themselves questions. Why? And more importantly, when that situation reverses and it becomes an employer market again, what are you going to do? I mean, fundamentally, to try to ensure that, we become an industry that really, kind of attracts people who want to stay here, not just use it as a sort of a stepping stone to something else.
Better, I think you have a perspective on that.
Yeah, I think, what Andy mentioned in terms of, sort of hiring the right people, having the best people in the team, retaining them, keeping them motivated, to keep customer at the heart. It's one of the challenging things to do, and I think that it's an ongoing challenge, that every company in every industry has to face. So, especially at the kitchen level, sort of, when the kitchen teams are dealing with, let's say 500,000 customers on a daily basis. So how do you ensure that each customer, each order is sort of each order is basically a unique, memorable, and delightful experience for the customer, so that the customer comes back to the brand. So that's very important. It's an ongoing challenge for us also, and we are investing a lot of our efforts to ensure that teams are happy, teams are motivated to deliver customer delight.
Yeah, it's. I personally see this storm of change for the next 12 months. It's going to take, every consumer market is learning how to manage this, with a shortage of staff, a perceived shortage of staff. Where we've grown up in the UK, we've only ever had 5 people on the floor. Now, 5 people on the floor is a disaster, because we don't know how to manage them. We don't know how to optimize labor. And I think it's going to take 12 months for it to really, really settle down. What about you, Badr? What's your perspective on this?
I think people is one of the biggest. Like, we have 5 priorities for this year. Our number 1 priority is make Kitopia the best place to work. And that's across the organization, from people on the executive team to management, and most importantly, our frontline workers and team in the kitchen, at kitchen level. They don't see the consumer, but they need to be enriched in what they do. They need to see upward mobility. They need to be proud of everything they're accomplishing, because they are accomplishing incredible things. So having that as a priority across the organization has helped us change culturally. Mo, my partner and CEO, is at another talk right now talking about mental health in the workspace and the importance of that. So big priority for us. I think, I don't want to say I think, I know we are over 3,000 people today and continuing to grow. So, any business you're in, any industry you're in, even if you're on a sports team, I think we resonate a lot with a Netflix culture. If you're on a sports team, you want the best players on your team, and you've got to treat them all like great team players and nurture them.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yesterday, I was on a different stage, and we were talking about the impact in the workplace, and the mental health impact in the workplace, and it's considerable. It really is. And Ian, I see you nodding away, and I know this is something that you truly do care about.
Yeah, first of all, I think it's not something we should just be concerned about during COVID. I mean, this is,
It's the next pandemic, I think.
And again, I think the pandemic exposed a lot of issues in our industry, if we're not properly taking care of our, the team members and whatnot. I think, as Andy said, a lot of people just said, they've realized it's not worth it, right? And they haven't, and a lot of people weren't treated well during COVID. And I don't think, people are going to soon forget that. So we're a victim of, I think not all businesses are equal, and not all businesses treat their employees right. So this is just a supply and demand marketplace. It's a bit of an elastic now, and I agree with you. Things will settle down, but it helped us evolve to be in a better place as an industry, because we should be doing these things whether there's a shortage of staff or not. And I think COVID was just I was going to use a word that I probably can't use here, but it was messed with everybody's heads because it was so long, right?
Yeah.
And there was real anxiety that just, so because it was very unusual. I mean, I've been on the planet a while. I've never experienced anything like this. Yeah. And our team, they used to say, well, tell us what's going to happen. And I'd be like, well, it's my first pandemic, so I don't really know what's going to happen. Yeah. But we're going to keep moving forward. We didn't know it was coming, but we know it will end at some point.
Yeah.
So.
And I know all 4 of you, and those who know me well out there, they will know that actually, why wait till there's a pandemic till we look after our people, and we look after their future, and we develop themselves? And why don't we put our arms around them and ask them how they're feeling in the morning, every morning? And we've got a few minutes left, and start thinking, folks, if you've got any questions for the guys up here, and try them really hard, put them on the spot. But let's just have like a minute each, if we can. What next? What for the cloud, dark, virtual world? What's the next unthinkable? If we went back 3 years, we would never have dreamed what's happened now. Let's fast forward a couple of years. What are we going to be talking about? Go.
I think content is king. I compare what we're going through now to a Netflix, and you look at they're spending hundreds of billions of dollars on content. I think owned content's going to be king. If you have great content and you have the channels to get that content to customers, you have the attention of the customer. And I think content is the real battleground in our industry globally.
Andy?
I think the majority of what we were doing, 100 years ago in terms of hospitality will stay the same. So I think I hold on to a couple of points. One, that there are, whatever it is, 7.2 billion people in the planet. That hasn't changed. A few unfortunates have moved on, as always happens. But what won't change is them wanting to eat. What will change is the nature of our fulfilling that demand. I don't think that people will stop going to restaurants and brick and mortar. I think when they go, increasingly they'll be looking for more than just the food and more than just nice smiley service. There will be this continuous requirement, or those who will be successful are those who are able to fulfill the visit time, you know, with whatever excitement, edutainment, entertainment, all those elements. Food will always be absolutely critical to it, and we've talked earlier today about the growth in health and wellness and plant-based stuff. I think that will definitely be a continuous trend. But delivery, as such, will just continue to be part and parcel of lifestyle.
Let's keep some time. Badr, quick stop off at you.
Thanks, David. So, broadly, if you look at last 20 years, like every consumer industry has been disrupted by its internet equivalent. If you look at retail, there's Walmart versus Amazon. If you look at entertainment, there's Disney versus Netflix. If you look at hotels, there is Marriott versus A&B. Food is still one category. If you think about it, McDonald's is still the largest company with a $190 billion valuation market cap. So we believe that in the next 10 years, we will have a disruptor, food disrupting company, which will achieve the scale of McDonald's in the entire world. So we're pretty excited about that. We're investing in a lot to build everlasting food brands. Excited to be in this journey.
Amazing.
So I like to think about the fashion industry a lot when I think about how delivery is disrupting. A long time ago, I don't know how many hundreds of years ago, it was most affordable for you to make your own clothes at home, right? You'd make your own clothes at home. That was the best way to dress. Then you'd go to kind of local tailors, and they would make your clothes for you. And then off the rack was actually the most expensive. So you wouldn't go buy off the rack brands because that was the most expensive. Fast forward today, off the rack is the cheapest. If you want to get something custom made by a designer, that's extremely expensive, and you wouldn't even dream of sewing something yourself at home. Maybe some of you would, but most of you wouldn't. And I think if you look at real estate today and how kitchens are, the kitchen in my house is tiny, even though I love to cook. You go to cities like Seoul with a very booming kind of on-demand economy, and there's only a kitchen every 5 floors in luxury apartment buildings where young singles would live. So I think there are a lot of subtle changes happening around us every day, like walk into malls where we used to have kitchens, check out like how real estate is being repurposed. And I think you can sit there and plot what everything means over time, and I think the change is coming very fast, and it's fun to theorize about, but it's nothing that probably we can really expect or talk about right now.
I think you're right. There's been fast and fast, hasn't there? And this has been hyperloop fast the last 2 years. It really has. Any questions from the audience that you want to put to the Disney artists of the food tech world? There must be. Because I don't want to finish early. I have a record of disrupting agendas. We finished early, guys. Oh my God. Andy, you must have some. We've got 2.5 minutes. It's yours. Well, has the current revolution plateaued?
No. No, I don't think it has. I don't think it was, anyway, I don't think it was a revolution as much as an evolution that's speeded up a bit. So no, I think that, as I say, there's just going to be an increasing sense of specialization in some areas. I mean, what the Cloud Kitchen guys are doing, clearly their model requires them to continually find new ways to make that investment work, and they'll do a great job, I'm sure. And that will drive more micro sort of shifts in the marketplace. So look, I've been doing a lot of food for many years. It was different 40 years ago from what it was 30 years before that. It'll keep innovating, and ultimately we are, as hospitality people, really just tuned in to recognizing those shifts and responding to them. We'll keep doing that. And I think it's just, plus ça change, plus ça, the même chose.
This, for me, is one of the most exciting things ever to happen in our industry. I remember 7 years ago, and I sat on a stage somewhere with 3 guys from the virtual world, and we almost had fisticuffs on the stage, and it really does continue to evolve, and it's so exciting, and we'll come and do it all again next year. And so I think, thank you very much, everybody. And I don't know what we're doing now, but we're going to leave. Thanks. Good job. Thanks. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Thank you, Mr. David Singleton. Well, great job, sir. Thank you, and your panel. Thank you. You're going to carry on the rest of the show, actually. I'm just going to go and sit and drink coffee. Anyway, we have two 10-minute presentations for you before our next panel discussion, and then we're on to the coffee break, everybody. But it's all about the community next and the spotlight of the community. I'd like to welcome onto the stage a gentleman called Ravi Chandran, the CEO